Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk about how Bitcoin is a revolution. I got into Bitcoin about 9 years ago, and this is the vibe that I felt from it from the beginning. Bitcoin fundamentally changes how we work with money, how we don't have to trust any central party like a government or like a bank. With Bitcoin, we don't have to do that. Before I dive in, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Ledn. Ledn is where I earn yield on my Bitcoin. So you lend out your Bitcoin to them and then you earn a yield on it. There are of course, some risks in doing this, but it's a service I personally use. Definitely recommend that you check them out. Okay, getting back to the main topic here. I first write about this in the Held Report on Thursdays. So if you want to get this information first, subscribe to the Held Report. Link is on the screen or below in the description. Okay, so Bitcoin as a revolution. Before, people forget that we were formerly on a gold standard. And when we were on a gold standard, people could always flee to that hard currency when governments implemented really bad policies, like really poor policies. And what's kind of crazy is when we look at, all of observable history, we've never been in a moment like this with governments in terms of how much money they've printed, and there hasn't been like a big financial collapse. And so, it's pretty wild to see. In fact, I definitely recommend folks go, if we look at like the deficit just in this year alone is 3 trillion. 5 years ago, we didn't say the word trillion a lot. And now it's being thrown around every other week of like, oh, a trillion printed here, a trillion printed there. And so if you read this report called, it's the Deutsche Bank, A Journey into the Unknown Long-Term Asset Management Study, they look at all of these historical trends of deficits, GDPs, et cetera, for like 500 years. We've never been in this moment before. And so we're really starting to see the economy and people start to wake up to like, whoa, the central banks don't have this under control. And that's where, Satoshi felt the same way. Satoshi felt that with Bitcoin, he wanted to build a new financial system where you didn't have to trust these central banks or banks to handle your money. And he planted it right in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis. And so what was really cool is that, when he built Bitcoin, he built it back in like 2016, 2017, or sorry, 2006, 2007, right before the financial crisis, because he had seen some elements of the economy start to fracture. And then he planted it right in the middle of the financial crisis. This was 1 month after Lehman Brothers collapsed on October 31st. Now, at first you're probably thinking, oh, well, that's Halloween. But actually, I think he published it for a couple of reasons on that date, for a couple of specific reasons. I mean, certainly the year that he chose to plant Bitcoin was probably more random, and maybe the month, but certainly the day that he chose to plant Bitcoin must have had some intent. And this is a really great quote so I'll get into that in a minute, but this is a great quote from Satoshi. The root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction in reserve. Now, I think Satoshi planted the white paper on October 31st as a hat tip to the ancient Gaelic festival of Samhain, which was also a date that Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to the church door. Both represent the end of an old system and the beginning of a new one. Samhain represented the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. The early Catholic Church, in an attempt to gain believers, adopted some festivals such as Samhain, and in 1835 created All Saints' Day to coincide with October 31st, and that's what we call Halloween, or All Hallows' Eve. On October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses onto the door of the castle church dedicated to All Saints. Luther was outraged that the idea that sinners could be able to pay through their sins or have to work to pay off their sins. And under the Pope, these were considered part of the church treasury, which allowed those in power to continue their lavish lifestyle at the expense of the masses. Luther undermined the authority of the Pope through his 95 Theses, starting a process of reformation. Luther's ideas became very popular, spreading around the world through the newly invented printing press, which changed the course of the world forever. Both Satoshi and Luther had carefully chosen October 31st to announce their ideas, symbolizing death and renewal. Both saw the imprisonment of people by these legacy systems, and both suggested the ousting and both suggested ousting the existing authorities as the solution to the problem. And so this is what Satoshi felt, right? And that's where hodlers, so hodlers being all of us who own Bitcoin and hold on to it, we represent part of the revolution as well. You're a critical component of this. So Satoshi says, in this sense, it's more typical of a precious metal. Instead of the supply changing to keep the value the same, the supply is predetermined and the value changes. As the number of users grows, the value per coin increases. It has the potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, its value goes up, which could attract more users, taking advantage of the increasing value. So this FOMO cycle is what Satoshi hypothesized would be the viral loop or bootstrap mechanism to create network effect. And so Tobias J. Huber has a really great quote where he said, "Hodling bootstrap Bitcoin into existence. Hodling increases the value, which increases demand, hash rate, and network security. This in turn attracts new hodlers and devs. This self-reinforcing feedback loop, like I said before, that viral loop, drives Bitcoin's network effects, security, and value. Early hodlers believed in Bitcoin despite overwhelming negativity and false information. For example, being labeled as like money for drug dealers and money launderers. They had a really strong risk appetite too to weather the volatility of being a first mover. I mean, it's been a wild run over the last 9 years I've been in this space. They're practitioners of skin in the game." Naval has a great quote here where he says that protocols die when they run out of believers. So all money is a belief system, and with Bitcoin and hodling, hodling is the survival of that belief system, of that money. And via the Lindy effect, the longer Bitcoin remains in existence, the greater society's confidence that it will continue to exist in the future. The faith in the new financial system, like I said before, binds everything together. Bitcoin isn't just a software project, it's a method of coordination for a large group of people who face powerful adversaries. It's not just a technological breakthrough, it's more of a social one. And Kay Kurwaka has a really great quote here where he said, "A stable and sustainable ideology must be the foundation of all cryptocurrencies. No amount of cryptography or consensus protocol development will help a currency with unstable and bankrupt ideology. Stable ideologies allow communities to thrive. Money is a winner-take-all technology, and it's driven by network effects. The crypto with the most hodlers, the most believers, therefore will be the ultimate winner. By owning Bitcoin, you become the central bank, the backbone of the financial system. Hodling isn't about finding another buyer at a higher price someday. If hyper-Bitcoinization occurs, you never have to sell. You'll hold the reserve asset of the world. Bitcoin promises an alternative for citizens across the world to keep their savings in a form of money that can never be confiscated nor diluted. Through hodling, we may finally be set free. Those who opt in to Bitcoin, the orange pill or the red pill, are trading something abundant for something scarce, trading the past for the future, and trading independence for financial sovereignty." Hope you like this foray into how Bitcoin is a revolution and how hodlers, you who are holding Bitcoin, play an important part in that. If you like this video, please give it a like or give me a subscribe. It really helps me get my message out to more people to tell more people about Bitcoin. Thanks for watching. Cheers.